Welcome back to the Resilient Philosopher. This is D. Leon Dantes, and today we'll be talking about the philosophy of nationalism. It seems like lately the term of Christian nationalism is being thrown around a lot, and I figure that it is necessary to talk about it from a philosophical angle, from a leadership stand or point of view. Nationalism is not bad. Being identifying yourself with your nation, with your culture, with your roots is not a bad thing at all, as long as you don't take it to extreme levels. But there's always a fine line. And it's almost like knowing that fine line is extremely hard because nationalism has been rooted as part of fascism, as part of dictatorships, as part of every single revolution that there has been against an established government. So when you start throwing the phrase nationalism, it can bring back memories to a lot of people, really bad memories. For example, in my own personal view or in my own personal experience, in Cuba, Fidel Castro used nationalism. He actually was a nationalist. He believed in the nation being first. Actually, he even believed in what you would consider here to be Republicans and United States. That nationalist point of view was put into the people, and it was fed by blaming everything that happened to the United States. United States wanted to destroy Cuba. So he followed the rule book of every fascist and dictator ever in history, where he found a common enemy for the people to unite against and stand with him. And that rule book has been used by every single totalitarian regime, by every single dictator, by every fascist government system, by every fascist dictator as well. But the key, though, is it is rooted in nationalism. And when you add religion to it, it's almost like adding air to a fire. You think that the fire is going to be extinguished, but in reality, it just hides and grows even bigger. And that's what happens when you mix either nationalism to religion or religion to nationalism. And that scares me more than anything else. I'm okay with being nationalist because I myself, even though I've been here for 31 years, I do consider myself an American, and I don't want to go back to Cuba. I don't have no life in Cuba. So this is my nation, and I stand by my nation. But at the same time, when you start putting religion with it, I am a big lover or have deep respect and admiration for freedom of religion and separation of state and church. Those two things are vital to me. Yes, freedom of speech is vital as well, but when you remove freedom of religion and or separation of state and church, freedom of speech goes out the window. So it is vital that when you start seeing one religion attached to the nation, beware. Because the first thing that will disappear is your freedom of religion, followed by uniting the state and church into one. And when that happens, my friend, you can kiss your freedom of speech goodbye. It is a trickle effect or a chain reaction that happens. So, this is why I figured that this episode will be so important to analyze and listen to carefully. History only repeats in certain ways because we don't learn from them, because we choose to ignore the signs, because we choose to ignore the facts. Personally, I heard people, and people have told me that they'd rather have a dictatorship than a socialist government. Socialism and communism and capitalism have failed as a government. The only way that at least socialism and capitalism can work is if they work together. Why do I say this? Because the biggest investment any company, corporation, LLC, however you want to put it, any entity that makes business, the biggest investment that it has is on its worker. Without the working class, the business has no source of creating content or creating material. You remove the workers and you have nothing to give to consumers. So, if companies are now willing to invest in their infrastructure, including and most important, in their own employees, so that they grow within the company, so that they can not so much, it's not about climbing the ladder, the corporate ladder. It's about being prepared to be innovative, prepared to the new technologies, the new ways of doing business. I mean, have you considered how many companies are actually adapting to emotional intelligence, to having leadership that actually knows what emotional intelligence is, the importance of empathy, the importance of putting yourself in a situation where you can understand or try to at least understand the point of view of other people instead of just closing your mind or making assumptions. So this is why it's vital for corporations, for businesses to invest in their workers. Now, who pays the most consistent amount of taxes? The working class. Because in a society where capitalism is investing within their employees, it's okay to give them tax cuts. Why not? They're reinvesting within your society. And you can use those taxes for the infrastructure that gets those employees to work. And the infrastructure that gives those employees health to continue working. Now, if you are adding one and one together, you can see that when I'm talking about the government facilitating things for the people, for the working class, it is a form of socialism. It is socialism. Socialism, in its essence, is helping society to find equity. Not equality, equity. In socialism, it doesn't matter how high you are or how low you are, as long as everybody has equal opportunities to be in a better situation. You are removing the excuses, which is one of my biggest philosophy principles. Remove the excuses and all you have left is reasons. So if you give the lower class all the reasons to climb up in social status, you remove all the excuses and they still choose to stay in the lower class, that's up to them. Now, to the elderly, to the people in need, to the sickly, to the people that are sick, communities within society should help them. And the community should be helped starting with their government officials, starting with the mayor, with the police department, with the firefighters. Oh, wait, that sounds like communism. But wait, our taxes do pay for the police department in a community, the fire department for our community, the officials elected for our community. So that is a form of communism. Interesting. How now we have described communism, socialism, and capitalism within a republic that is democratically electing its official. So imagine if you removed political parties' ideologies from our government. No more left or right, only the representation of each district, of each sections of the country. 2 senators representing the states, and the representative needed to represent the state compiled of how many districts it has. Same thing within the House of Representatives and the Senate in those states. So there you go, a whole government system created where you remove the excuses and all you have left is reasons. If you officials elected are not doing their job, it don't matter if it is orthodox opinions or conservative ideologies or progressive ideologies. It's irrelevant which ideologies it is because it will be seen when you see the outcomes within the community. Now, there's another great point to highlight right now. It is about corporate welfare. We as Americans have been lied to. And let me tell you why. For a good 38 years of my life, the word socialist turned me completely into close-minded person. Couldn't stand it. Why? Because my family comes from Cuba. Cuba was supposed to be a socialist country. So I started digging and I started getting informed and I started reading about Cuba from being discovered by Christopher Columbus to when Fidel took over. And I realized one thing. Cuba has never been socialist. Cuba was run by a dictatorship, by a fascist, by authoritarian regime, where they were the law, not the people, them. Then I watched at other countries that have claimed to be socialist or communist. An example is China. When China under Mao was completely socialist, it could kill like over 1 million of its own citizens with the Great Leap Forward. Stalin did the same thing. So that's not socialism. That is dictatorship. That is an authoritarian dictatorship that doesn't take no responsibility and no love for its society. So how can they be socialist? And if they don't care about their society, how can they be communist? When you have no elected officials by the people, and the elected officials are elevated due to how well they kiss the ring of the people above them, that's not socialism, that is not communism, that is an authoritarian or totalitarian regimes ruled by a dictatorship. In some cases, even through a fascist. Now, another important matter is when China got big was when they adapted capitalism to their socialism. When America was great before was when they adapted social welfare for the people and raised the taxes on the rich and corporations after World War II. So it is important to remember that because we're being told that America was great before the 1900s to the early 1900s. And in reality, that was not the greatest time for America. No, because during that time, the working class did not make enough money for feeding their family. Our birth rate was declining due to that fact. So here they are talking about our birth rate, or at least recently, the birth rate of Russia. The birth rate of a country goes down because usually that country has made an infrastructure where it's extremely difficult to raise a child, either because of the cost is too high or there's not enough help to facilitate the mother staying at home or the father staying at home or having somebody to take care of the child or the children, I should say. So, taking that into account, if you want the birth rate to increase, you know what our government did? They instituted or integrated or started the child tax credit. That was how they persuaded people to have more kids. Hey, if you have a child, we'll give you up to $2,000 for each child. Now, it didn't start with $2,000. It has gone up through time. But the point being is you give an incentive, a rebate for people to have more kids. You see how our government has already worked like a business. This is not something new. What is new is the amount of corruption within every level of the high seats or within the top officials of each department of each administration. Because the first 4 years of a president is trying to get reelected. And the last 4 years, what are you going to do? You're not going to be able to run again. Most are so narcissistic that they don't think ahead. Meaning, they don't think, oh, when I cannot run again, my vice president can run. So the first 4 years is about me being reelected. So the next 4 years, my vice president can look good and we can keep power. Nope. That goes right out of the window. Because the lack of leadership within our government officials, it's gone. The only few officials that I've seen with courage to stand up has been the younger generation, Generation X, Generation Millennials. The older generation, they're complacent. They're fine. They don't care. It's not their fault that we're here. To their eyes, it's our fault. It's the next generation fault that we are where we are. We have either become too depraved or too lazy in their eyes. But yes, and the one point they're right is, it is up to us, the new generation, the Generation X, the Millennials, Generation Z, and the youngest members of Generation Z. Those are the ones that will make it better for the Generation Alpha. And unless, if us, Generation X, Millennials, don't educate ourselves, or if we don't educate ourselves properly to actually teach them with facts instead of with misinformation, maybe, just maybe, we have a small chance of hope left to actually make a difference within this world. Remember, it takes a nation united to make a difference, and we have led 47% of the nation dictate the outcome because we either chose not to vote or we chose to not vote for the candidate just because we didn't like him. This is not a criticism about the presidency. That's a whole different conversation. This is more of, don't complain now if you didn't do nothing before. Now prepare yourself to make a difference in the next election. So if you're not happy with the things that are going on now, no complaint, especially if you didn't vote. What you need to do now is inform yourself, inform others, and make a decision for the next elections. Hold the officials accountable in the next election. Midterms is coming, and that is where we can make a difference. And now, when you think about it, this is where nationalism is important because we all need to find the common ground of what brings us together as one nation. And that it should be what brings us together, not political views, not religious views. This country was founded as a republic with freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and separation of state and church. And guess what else, people? The right to bear arms to defend ourselves. So if you're going to let a totalitarian or authoritarian regime take over because they're not declaring themselves socialist, you got another thing coming. There is such a thing as worse, way worse than socialism or communism, and that is called an authoritarian government run by a fascist or a dictator. And more scary is when you have a president that is actually being influenced by people with worse morals than you could ever think of. Don't be alarmed by those that are on the light. The ones you need to worry about are those that work in the shadows. Just because they barely come out to talk in public, they are doing more harm in the shadows than they are when they come out in public. And when they do come out in public, analyze their words. If they're willing to say that in the public, imagine how much worse they could be saying in a closed office. The other thing is when we let religion into our politics, when we have congressmen and congresswomen talking about God in the House of Representatives or in the Senate floor, they're going against our Constitution, separation of state and church. No law should be written based on religious principles. You want to believe in God, that's fine. I'm a spiritualist. I have no problem with that. But you separate that from the law. The law is the law of the land for everybody, not just for Christians, not just for Muslims. And if you want to create an area of law based on religion, go to another country. This country goes by the land of the law, or the law of the land. And that law is not based on religious views. That law or the laws are made for everyone within the nation. So if you consider yourself a nationalist, a constitutional lover, or lover of the Constitution, I should say. I don't even like using the word. It sounds kind of weird. If you hold the Constitution dearly to your heart, that sounds better, then you will have to agree that we are going in the wrong direction. We are going in the wrong direction so fast that is alarming, very alarming. And I want to close with this idea. It is up to you, the individual, the citizen, the working class, to stand up now before we disappear, because we're shrinking fast and we're becoming into a system of economics where you have a few elites, wealthy class, and you had a majority of working class, and then a low minority of poor class. Unfortunately, in the last 25 years, that has flipped. We still have a small amount of wealthy in comparison to how many we have in the working class and in the lower class. But when I say the working class, let's be more specific. The middle class, the one that makes between 50,000 to 150,000 a year is, and I'm talking single, not as a family, not as jointly as husband and wife, single. It is disappearing, it's shrinking. And once it's gone, all you're going to have left is 80% poor people and 20% wealthy, with even a small percentage of elite wealthy people. What do you think is going to happen when you have 80% of the population poor? Your manipulative tactics will no longer work on them. They will rise up. So you, as the elite wealthy, and you, as a government official, should be reconsidering how you treat the working class and how you treat the middle class. Because without us, you won't have a government. And you're definitely not going to have a place to enjoy your money. I've seen it in Cuba, personally, because I do have family members there. And I do have family members that go to visit. I don't. And I can tell you, it doesn't look pretty. And most of the saddest part is, we still think Cuba is the way it is because it's socialist. And it's not. When do you see videos of kids going hungry in China, or in Russia, or in Denmark, or in Germany? Or we can continue the list in Spain. You know how many countries around the world have socialist embedded in their government? Socialism embedded? How many countries actually have communist parties that are elected in a democratic way without dictatorship? So when you tell me that you'd rather have a dictator than socialism, I can tell you, love and marriage, you can't have one. It's like a horse and carriage. You can't have one without the other. That's exactly what will happen. You cannot have a dictatorship without a socialism, and you will not have a dictatorship without totalitarian or authoritarian systems embedded into your government. And when all your rights are lost, you'll be found like many Cubans, including my grandfather, that when Fidel won the war, he said, "We're free, at last, we're free." And his own dad said, soon those cries of freedom will turn into tears of pain. And my grandfather ended up going to prison because my uncle did not salute the flag and sing the national anthem inside the school. Isn't that something? Nationalism. Are you ready for it? Are you ready for leadership with nationalist ideologies? I'm not. But again, I did say this was a philosophical episode. So, take my words, do your own research. Do your own research on the matter, and leave us comments in this episode. Also visit our website, visionleon.com, and the article should be out later today or tomorrow morning based on this episode. And we are looking forward to seeing your comments on that article. Also wanted to remind you that the best way to support our work is by buying either one of our books or both, available now on Amazon: The Prism of Reality, The Resilient Philosopher, and The Resilient Mind, Volume 1, Leadership Lessons from the Edge of Mental Health. You can also subscribe to our website or subscribe to follow our podcast. The subscription to our website, it could be through donations or it could be free. It's up to you as a subscriber. Any support that you can do for our work is highly appreciated, but this work will continue with or without support because the mission has always been to inform others. And if they don't like the information, to at least make them go out and fact check the information and come back on me. I can be wrong. I am not perfect by any means, and I actually enjoy being found wrong because that is an opportunity of growth. So with that said, I look forward to the next episode, and I look forward for every comment and every interaction with any listener and every listener. So stay strong, stay resilient, question everything, and most importantly, always show up for yourself.